Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming to today's Board of Supervisors meetings. We'll have Pledge of Allegiance by Supervisor Rivas.
Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is acknowledgement certificate of posting.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Against, motion carries. Thank you. Presentations and recognitions. Today, the Board of Supervisors will approve a proclamation declaring April 22nd, 2017 as Walk a Mile in Her Shoes in San Benito County and present proclamation to Community Solutions and the Emilius House. Do we have that certificate? Can we get it? Do we have any members of the representatives? Can you come up to the podium, please? Is there a motion to accept?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Thank you. Let me just read a couple words from here. In fact, let me just read. Whereas Walk a Mile in Her Shoes Day is intended to draw attention to the fact that rape, sexual assault, and intimate partners abuse remain serious issues in our society, and whereas in addition to the immediate physical and emotional costs, rape, sexual assault, and intimate partner abuse may also have associated consequences of post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse, depression, homelessness, eating disorder, and suicide. And now, therefore, let it be that the San Benito County Board of Supervisors designate April 22nd, 2017 as Walk a Mile in Her Shoes Day in San Benito County. And let me hand this over to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And we have some shoes for you here, Jaime.
Oh, which ones are mine?
These are yours this year.
These are mine? Do you have the other pair?
They're too
I
big.
do have the other half.
I will take them. I will take them. Keep these?
You do?
You will give them to me on the day.
I'll give it to you on the day. How's that?
Sounds good. And I actually have a surprise, too.
On behalf of Emilius House and Community Solutions, I'd like to thank the board for recognizing. And all right, Mr. Jaime has got his winner's beads, shall we say, for participating. You probably have several of those.
I have 3 of them. 3 events.
Excellent. We're starting our 5th year this year. And as you can see, we have multiple choices and sizes of shoes of all comfort levels for gentlemen. Women, we encourage you to bring your own heels and walk with them. And in light of what just happened yesterday in San Bernardino County again, I think it's paramount on everybody's mind right now that domestic violence and assault affects everybody, every social, economic background that we have nationwide. Erica?
Yeah, this is a great event. It's a great community event, a lot of families, and we've had a great turnout every year. Last year it rained, and we still had over 100 people show up. And we're really grateful to our community for showing up every year and supporting such a great cause. So we really encourage all of our community members to come out. It's April 22nd at 10 a.m. right here at the Green Grass, and the event is over usually by like 12:30. So it's a really quick event, but it brings a lot of community involvement. It shows support to all the survivors within our community, and it shows that this is an issue that our community takes seriously, and we're all here to support this cause and to eradicate it within our community. So thank you again for acknowledging this day, and I hope to see everybody there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to share from my personal experience and the pain that I get every time and on my feet after a couple of days of walking a mile in her shoes. It's worth the pain. I actually take a greater appreciation when my wife, tries out new shoes because it's a lot of pain And it's just not the symbol of just wearing the shoes, but actually the symbol of the pain that us men have to go through. And thank you for all those wars and all those walks and all those support that we had. And I guess I talked to our mayor, and last night he's going to also attend and walk with me. And there's Victor, who actually, he had a personal, his sister passed away of violence, and perfect fitting to have Victor part of this organization. Thank you, Victor. And thank you to the mayor, and I hope the other members of the community participate and join. And I look forward to it, and I will hand my check over to you guys the next couple of days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
All right. Any comments from fellow supervisors? None? Okay, let's move on. Public comment. This is an opportunity to address the board on items of interest not appearing on the agenda. No action may be taken unless provided by Government Code Section 54954-2. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Marty Richmond.
Good morning, Marty Richmond from Hollister. I previously sent all the members of the board an email. I hope you've gotten a chance to read it. I'm sure you get a lot of emails concerning our economic situation here in San Benito County, specifically the growth rate of personal income from the 10-year period from 2005 to 2015. As published by the federal government, and we had the lowest growth rate, 2.5%, lower than the national average, lower than the state average, and lower than the surrounding counties. Just to give you some idea, in that period of time, the personal income per capita in Santa Clara County grew $30,000. In Monterey County, it grew about $13,000. In both Fresno and Merced County, it grew over $10,000. And I think Santa Cruz was like $14,000. And in San Benito County, the growth was only $9,000 and something. Now, that combined with your other issues on revenue means we're falling further behind. We have to be honest. One of the things about if you're going to improve things is you have to kind of be brutally honest about where you are. Doesn't mean you don't have the capability of moving forward. It just means you can't sugarcoat it. And the truth of the matter is, when you look at our per capita spending on the general fund, ours is in the neighborhood of $800 and change, and everybody around us is a minimum of $1,700, which means basically the per capita spending on the general fund is twice as much in the other counties because they get twice as much revenue minimum. So we're falling closer and closer to Merced and Fresno County, and in fact we didn't even make their rates over the 10-year period. Meanwhile, as I point out, Santa Clara, per capita personal income went up $30,000. That's how the stretch works. The rich are getting richer, and the poor are not moving along very well. So I encourage you to keep your eye on the ball and try to get more business opportunities in here, more return on your investments, and grow the income of the people here so they have disposable income that they can do better with their lives. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty. Anyone else from the public? Okay, we'll move it on. Department head announcements, CEO, right?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bear with me. I'm not feeling too well. I'd like to invite Louis Valdez, our management analyst, up.
Members of the board, good morning. A few announcements for you. First of all, I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce the new affordable housing coordinator for the city of Hollister and the county of San Benito. Tricia Lee is here. Tricia started last week. Last week. She's located currently out at the RMA office. She's going to be out there for a few months, and then we are hopefully going to try and make arrangements to relocate her to a more central location so she can have a maximum amount of public contact with folks who are seeking affordable housing opportunities. So, Tricia, I'd like to invite you up to say a couple words to the board, put you on the spot, no pressure at this point, and simply introduce yourself.
Hi there. Like you said, I'm Tricia Lee, and I've been the housing coordinator for the City of Hollister for the last 5 or so years, and just simply like to look forward to the opportunity of county and city working together and providing affordable housing for everybody that we can. Thanks.
Actually, Tricia, right?
Tricia.
Jaime, not to put you on the spot, but in about a month or two, can you come back to the board and give us your vision?
Absolutely. Once I get settled and start.
Yeah, I just want to hear it.
Okay.
Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Tricia was hired through a competitive process. Brian Swanson, the Development Services Manager from the City of Hollister, invited us to participate in the interview panel. Tricia was the top candidate, and so I think she's going to do a great job. And it's a great example of how the city and the county can work together. So we're really happy to have Tricia on board helping us. That's number one. Number two, I did want to make the board aware. We did receive word from the Department of Toxic Substance Control, DTSC, regarding the Class 1 permit. The public comment period has opened, and it closes, I should say, on April 26th. It opened on March 10th. The permit has been prepared, and barring any kind of complications, we expect for that permit to be issued to the City of Hollister, and the issue, at least for the next, hopefully 10 years, will be settled. So I wanted to make the board aware of that. Third thing we wanted to do was let the board know, through the assistance of Supervisor Munzer, we have staff from the Department of Administration and Finance from AMBAG that will be coming to the county to provide us with some technical assistance and review of our accounting reports that are submitted to AMBAG, and to take a look at our ERP system. I spoke with the staff from AMBAG this morning, and they're going to help identify some technical contacts with Caltrans to help us with the interface that we're working on between the CAM system that is used to report project accounting to the California Department of Transportation and between our ERP to avoid that double entry and save, hopefully, the accounting team a significant amount of time. Joe Ball-Gonzalez has been involved with this, as has been the IT department, so we're working very diligently, and we're looking forward to that contact. And the last thing is I'll be attending a workshop down in Monterey at the AMBAG offices in connection with the AB 2766 grant. That's the electric vehicle grant that entities within our jurisdiction and within our COG are entitled to apply for. And we will be submitting an application and bringing a resolution back to the board asking for your support to hopefully acquire another electric vehicle for one of our departments. We'll probably looking at the IT staff with that. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer. If not,
No, thank you.
thank you.
We have another announcement out of our county counsel's office. We have Barbara Thompson, Assistant County Counsel.
I'm very pleased to introduce our new Deputy County Counsel. Her name is Erin Leem. She is a graduate of Harvard Law School in 2013, where she was an editor of the Harvard Environmental Law Review and Harvard Journal of Law and Technology. She has been working at the Cooley Law Firm in Palo Alto since 2013, the year of her graduation. And as an added benefit, she's a member of our community, so we've been able to bring her back into our community. I know that she's going to stay with us for a long time, and we're very happy to have her.
Hi there. It's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to join the community. I'm not originally from here, but I've married into a multi-generational ranching family, and over the last 9 years, I've loved hiking in the green rolling hills, hiking in the pinnacles at least a dozen times. I think it truly is one of the most beautiful places in the world. The only thing that's more beautiful than the scenery is just the people and the community here, so it's a real honor to be able to serve here, and I'm very happy to be here.
You'll fit perfectly with us.
Thank you.
Welcome
Thank you.
aboard.
We have another announcement out of our OES office, Kevin O'Neill.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Just wanted to give a quick update on some of the recovery items that we've been going through as a result of the January, February storms. Recently, the governor and the president declared a emergency in the county for the February storms, which is great news because that's where the majority of the damage to the historical park came from. But we've been making some progress on some of the projects, such as the San Juan Canyon Road, that posed a pretty immediate threat to drivers, the daily drivers on that road, and that project should be wrapping up in the next day or two. Supervisor Munzer and I have been working on trying to get crews back down to his district to address some of the major potholes on Pinoch and Coalinga Road. Lover's Lane remains a rather bumpy road, but we will hopefully be working with RMA to get a RFP out and get a contractor chosen to begin that work. As I've mentioned in the past, we had an RFP out for a consultant to do disaster cost recovery for us. That closed. We had 3 responses and have chosen Haggerty Consulting. They have an office out of San Francisco, so they're local, and they've already been helping out, providing a little guidance on the RFP process so that we can get that road fixed and maximize our reimbursement. The levies, we're still waiting on USDA. I have not heard anything. They were supposed to have something done by Thursday or Friday of last week, a contract ready for us to sign, and as of yet, no response to my text messages or calls, and no contract. So we'll continue to pressure them. The recent rains we had, the creek didn't react at all as expected. We have a couple more rainy days ahead of us, but again, we're not expecting any major impacts. Most of the storm should be affecting the North Bay area with some scattered showers and wind for us here in San Benito County. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but that's all I have for an update.
No. Any questions? Mark? Supervisor Medina?
Yes, Kevin. The craters on Lover's Lane, is there a short-term fix we can do? As we all know, there was an emergency out there last Tuesday, and the medical emergency people were not able to get through Lover's Lane. And since then, we've instructed them to, depending upon the location, either use the back way or Lover's Lane itself. Mm-hmm. But is there something we can do to fill these potholes or put something in these potholes in the interim? Because, number one, do we have any idea when we're going to actually fix that road?
Do we?
Yes.
Honestly, I think that's a question better directed at the RMA department. Okay. From what my understanding is that the temporary fix for that road is a rather large undertaking in itself. It's not. I guess it's not so much as, and this is coming from someone who's not an expert. It's not so much of just filling the potholes as it is chewing up the whole road. Again, please don't take my word for this, as I might be using the wrong words. But the permanent solution is raising the road and increasing the drainage, because a lot of these issues wasn't so much from the wave of water that came over it. It was from the standing water, the water coming out of just the earth super saturating the soil. So the permanent fix is addressing the drainage as well as raising the road. But the temporary fix is essentially chewing the road up and having it a dirt road, so to speak, for the interim. But again, that's a rather large project on itself. We have addressed the issue with the emergency crews. We've worked with Santa Cruz Regional 911, our contracted dispatch service, and we've informed them where the addresses are and to direct the units in a appropriate way, whether they need to go around to 152 or not. It should have been happening already, but somehow there was a breakdown, but that should be fixed now. But I wish I could answer that question better for you, but I just can't at this point.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
All right. Thank you. Feel free to call me anytime if you do have any questions.
That's all the announcements.
Ray, who's okay for road issues? Who's my contact person? Is it Louis or
Larry.
Larry? I had a little get together with some of my constituents on the west side of Hollister on Buena Vista Road, and there's a project being built called Chispa, low-income housing, and there's 2 other projects being built in the city. And so what's happening now is that with all this new construction, a lot of semis are using the OWL, they call them the OWL roads, Buena Vista Road to 156. And so the neighbors are complaining that the semis are driving fast, reckless. So is there anything we can coordinate with the city of Hollister on how we can relate to the construction companies, kind of slow down on those turns? There's a lot of, 65, 90-year-old young ladies out there that, get real scared when those trucks are driving real fast through there. So let's get together later on and talk about that. Okay, thank you. All right, are you done, Ray? Okay, let's move on to board announcements. Supervisor Rivas?
Yes, Mr. Chair, how are you? Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to our meeting this morning. I do have a couple of announcements. The first is I attended the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commission meeting last night, and it was brought to the attention of the commission, and to me in particular, of a grand jury finding. And the grand jury finding has to do with the juvenile hall, the facility, and the condition of the recreational area out there. It's a split between the concrete and grass, and there's a bunch of gopher holes. It's been infiltrated by some gophers, and so it's unusable. And so they had asked what the status of repairing that is. And so I looked back at a few grand jury reports dating back to 2014-15. And so in there, it basically says that one of the findings was that obviously the recreational area is it was determined to be an unsafe a condition, could cause injury to staff and youth. But in there, what I was really concerned about was it cites California Title 15, Section 1510, calls for an acceptable level of cleanliness, repair, and safety throughout the facility. Then you go to the grand jury report of 1516. One of the findings, there's no clear understanding on what the status is on the project to fix the basketball court and the cement over the dangerous whole-field grass area. Then fast forward to our grand jury report to this year. Again, it cites the condition as unacceptable out at the juvenile hall. But then here it says in one of the findings, there have been some delays in completing this because it is not yet clear who is currently in charge of the approval process at the county level. So I'd like to request that this issue be agendized. My understanding that the approvals have been made at the county level, but again, we're just being, seeing a whole bunch of different of these delays because of the bureaucratic process. And I think that this is something, I know we've had a lot of challenges related to staffing through RMA, and I think this is a perfect example of some of the challenges that we face as a community because of the struggles we've had in that department. So I think if the CAO can work with the probation chief, he's well aware of the situation, and if we could agendize it for a future meeting, maybe our next meeting, so that way the board can at least be aware. But the most important thing is to get the ball rolling to get this issue approved before the county finds itself in another issue of liability and crazy costs associated with that.
Do you have anything up to date on this, Ray, or nothing? Okay, then.
Yeah, and I don't need an update today. I just think that we need to agendize it for our next meeting, and we could talk about it.
All right.
Yeah, we'll make sure that happens.
Okay.
Right. And then on a lighter note, Mr. Chair, I was reading the news yesterday and happened to see on the Mercury News, they had a ranking of the top 10, they said, eats on the 101 corridor between Santa Barbara and San Francisco. And number 1 on the list, Jardines de San Juan. So go out to San Juan Bautista, the Mission City. Mr. Patello isn't here, so I had to steal his thunder. Thank you.
Good one. Supervisor Medina?
Yes, sir.
Nothing. Okay, Supervisor Munzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 announcements. I want to state, and I looked up the HR number and then proceeded to forget it, but Congressman Panetta has reintroduced Congressman Farr's old bill to reopen Clear Creek as a recreational area and wilderness. So I'm excited to see that is moving forward again in the halls of Congress. And also, AMBAG held its open house to give the public a opportunity to talk about its Metropolitan Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategies for 2040. It was held here in Hollister at the Hollister Community Center last Thursday on a stormy night, so attendance was not well attended. But one thing that did come out was the lack of public transportation between here and points north. So both the AMBAG staff and our own San Benito County COG staff took those comments, and we'll see what we can do about them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mine will be brief. I attended the intergovernment committee, and I guess we're going to have a presentation on a potential partnership. Is that on today's agenda? Yes. Yes. And a potential partnership with the high school, City of Hollister, and San Benito County on a aquatic center. That was most of the discussion we had at the intergovernment. And thank you, Louis, for good presentation, good data on that meeting. I also attended the Vets Commission meeting with Supervisor Medina. We did talk about, Adam, about the difference of what happened in the past and what's presented now. And I think we'll wait for that moment for Supervisor Medina and myself to give our point of view on that item because it is on the agenda. And then also this morning, Supervisor Munzer and myself attended the audit committee, and thank you, Joe, for a good presentation, and to the staff and to our auditors. It's like, kind of gave us, a little recourse on our accounting classes back at the university level. Thank you very much, and that concludes my presentation. Does anyone wish to pull any of the items off consent? Supervisor Rivas?
None.
Supervisor Munzer, Medina?
No, sir.
Supervisor Munzer?
None.
Anybody from the public? None. I just want to pull out number 9. It's going to be a real quick question. Okay. You know what? I'm going to hold back on number 9. I will ask Ray. It's not important. Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I happily will move to approve consent.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. Thank you. Actually, that's the first one this year.
First one in a long time.
7 years ago.
Finally did it, Robert.
Okay. Number 16, County Counsel's Office. Barba? Oh, this is a marijuana one. Okay.
Victor's going to lead it off.
That was too funny.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Victor Gomez with Pinnacle Strategy. Thank you so much for the opportunity to update the Board of Supervisors this morning. I'll go through this presentation just really quickly. So on March 28th, the Board of Supervisors directed the ad hoc committee to continue a discussion on the applications for amortization that were turned in late 2016. And we'll talk about that in just a second here. So I just wanted to provide to you a brief update. Feel free to stop me anytime with any questions that you may have. So overview, what has happened and what has the committee discussed over the last 6 weeks. What's our timeline and next steps for those applicants we just discussed. So first, what has the committee discussed? First of all, I want to thank Supervisor Rivas and Supervisor Medina for their participation in these meetings, and then all the stakeholders. We have a good group of stakeholders that have been involved, all have participated in one way or the other, and all have lasted through our fairly lengthy meetings. Our meetings are going about 2 to 3 hours each time we meet, and there's a lot to be discussed, a lot of issues to address. So we've discussed issues ranging from land use, the land use component, cultivation sizes, greenhouse structures, taxing structure, setbacks, setbacks from youth facilities, cost recovery, all issues.
Victor, you want to hold on 1 minute?
Sure, yeah.
Supervisor Munzer?
Victor, who are the stakeholders that are attending
Thank
the
you.
meeting?
Yeah. Thank you for that question, Supervisor. Currently, we have our district attorney, our sheriff. We have Louis from the CAO's office. Thank you, Louis, for being there and leading that effort. Karen, your ad commissioner. Ted, probation chief. And obviously the two supervisors, Barbara Thompson and Sarah as well, and Stacy Watson from code enforcement.
Okay, so it's all county staff.
A lot of county staff there.
Okay,
yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely, and they've all attended. Everybody's been there at all of our meetings. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good question. Thank you. So, yeah, we've discussed a variety of issues. County council staff is currently working on a potential draft. We'll be reviewing at the ad hoc and stakeholder committee level. We'll continue to have those discussions. And eventually here in just a second, I'm going to pose a question to you in reference to the committee and the public process for the cultivation ordinance. What's our timeline? We're still on course for a June draft for review. That's our desire, and that would be after the work of the ad hoc committee. Next steps for amortization and for the applicants that turned in their applications in November. So back on March 28th, the Board of Supervisors directed the ad hoc committee to deliberate, discuss the process a little bit more, and what their desire was going to be, and make a recommendation to this board. So the recommendation of the board was to initiate the applicant review process. Staff is currently reviewing those applications, if I'm not mistaken. They'll continue to review those applications, and the desire of the ad hoc committee and stakeholders was to move forward with this public hearing to vet these applicants. And we're hoping to shoot for a date. Obviously, this date has to be set by the Board of Supervisors. Hoping to shoot for a date of May 23rd, if I'm not mistaken, Barbara, and to give us opportunity to notify the applicants. Some may need corrections on their applications, and allow the staff, obviously, to vet these applicants to make sure that the right, obviously, recommendations are made before the Board of Supervisors. So that's the first question.
Okay, so you're asking the board that question right now.
That's correct. Well, I have another question to ask. I could ask them combinedly, or we could just take this one up.
I think this is very important to ask. So the committee members?
Yeah, after having a discussion, in particular with the sheriff and with our public safety officers, we felt that after reviewing most of the applications, and staff they're the ones that have done the intense scrutiny of these applications, we felt it was the correct direction to enforce the current ordinance and move forward through this public hearing process. Not knowing, we're setting an ambitious goal of completing this ordinance, but should we hit bumps in the road, we felt it's probably best to move forward with these public hearings while we complete the work of the current ordinance.
Okay. Supervisor Medina?
Along those same lines, we spend a lot of time talking with the sheriff, with the DA, with all the stakeholders, along with people out in the community. And we did decide, of course, the vetting process is extremely important. So we're putting that schedule together as we speak, and we'll talk about it some more later on today.
Okay.
And I believe the May 23rd, what we had directed staff was, it's best, that we leave it to their judgment how soon they can prepare for the hearing. And I'm assuming that this is the soonest date that we can do it, and which I'm okay with. And then if we need to extend the amortization period for another 180 days, we have the sufficient time to do so. Right, Barbara?
Yes. And there may be one or two applications that we put on the consent calendar for the next meeting to continue those past the the May 23rd date, the very earliest applications that were filed. And then we also have considered breaking down, the applications into groups of common likeness for ones with common characteristics. So right. That we'll discuss that further at the ad hoc meeting.
Staff. So we've we've brainstormed ideas on how we can make this upcoming hearing as efficient as possible because of the number of applicants that we would have to hear. And so but we're confident that we can narrow it down and have, a meeting where we're not going to be here for a week or even, more than a few hours. So.
Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what I'm hearing is that this May 23rd date is within the first 180 days.
It is for the majority of them, but we will have to continue one or two.
Okay, I'm very pleased to hear that and hear that that's a recommendation of the
Chair?
ad hoc committee. So thank you.
Supervisor Medina?
One thing, as I mentioned weeks or months ago, I want to make it very clear that once we vet these people and their application is accepted, when the new ordinance comes around, they may not be accepted in the new ordinance. So just because you're vetted into this ordinance amortization period, that doesn't automatically mean that once the new ordinance is approved, that you automatically jump into that ordinance.
That kind of begs the question, who gets to set the ground rules on what's accepted and what's not?
That will all have to be set up forth in the new ordinance.
New ordinance.
Okay.
That's what we're working on.
That's what we're working on.
Okay,
That's
perfect.
the whole idea.
Okay, thank you. Victor? Continue.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Actually, hold on. So the answer is yes.
Okay.
Okay.
You have to vote.
Thank you. So action and needed from the board. So obviously we took care of item 1. Item 2. So the obviously as we mentioned to you, the ad hoc committee has been working diligently to work through every individual item in a cultivation ordinance and a cultivation policy. And so we are in the process of getting that done, from cost recovery analysis to cultivation sizes to the zoning issues and setbacks. There's a lot of work that goes into this. So we are in the midst of those discussions, and the feedback I received from the ad hoc committee was a couple of options. The ad hoc committee certainly has the option to vet the first draft, an initial first draft of the cultivation ordinance at the ad hoc committee level, and open up a public hearing of the ad hoc committee and receive feedback from the community, from the public, from stakeholders, from industry members, and so on. Another option is to bring that draft ordinance to the full board, hopefully in an evening session, maybe May 9th at the earliest, or in June, depending on when we could get a draft available to the full board. But we would like some direction from the board today as to whether you'd like to keep that first public vetting hearing at the ad hoc committee level, or if you'd like that first public vetting hearing to come to the full board. And then if it does come to the full board, you obviously would then direct the ad hoc committee to continue to make adjustments to it as you see fit, depending on the feedback of the public and the feedback of the policymakers.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Rivas?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, so I propose doing an evening meeting. We've held one before.
Perfect.
And this would be strictly for, the benefit of the full board to review the draft ordinance and for the public to comment specifically on that draft ordinance.
Okay. Supervisor Medina?
Same thing, just to reiterate what Supervisor Rivas stated. The evening session, is to allow people who aren't allowed to come here during the day. They're working or they're commuting. So we want to make sure we're inclusive, that we have as many people as possible. So that was the reason why we want the meeting in the evening.
Okay, thank you. No problem.
I concur. I think that's a great idea. I think it's a great idea to have the full board participating in it so everyone knows what's being discussed and considered, because this is a very important topic for our community. And the evening meeting is great. It'll give the community a wider opportunity to participate also.
Okay. All right, Victor. So we'll have an afternoon with the whole board.
Yeah, and it'll be an evening session right after your one of your Board of Supervisors meetings, correct?
We'll start at 6 o'clock in the afternoon.
Because we're doing all those hearings on the same day. Yeah, we'll see. It's possible.
Okay.
Barbara, Ray?
What?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll work on the date. if we could, I mean, the board could set the date if it wanted at this time, or we could determine the date after our next ad hoc meeting on April 17th.
Yeah, and that might be best, Mr. Chair, because we still have
Okay.
another meeting here on
17th.
Yeah, on the 17th, so we can figure it out.
Good idea. Go. Okay.
Yeah, that'll be very, very helpful. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And just a quick little reminder, these are the initial sort of timeline desires of the ad hoc committee, and this was done at a presentation when you brought me on board back in February. So, 4 to 6 months to go through the first ordinance process and licensing procedures and so on. And then rules and regulations. We're actually quite, I would say we're at this point, knock on wood, we're about 30 to 45 days ahead of the schedule, which is certainly a good thing. Developing the tax structure for cultivation and manufacturing, we were probably looking at the end of this year to look at that as a potential measure to place on the ballot for next year, November of 2018. Again, conduct polling and develop public information campaign on the tax structure. Do some polling as to where I know Supervisor Medina has expressed interest on how this was going to be developed as well. So we were shooting for spring of next year, and then obviously the 18 ballot. So anyway, it looks like we're good to go. We're in that timeline, and certainly excited that there's a lot of progress being done at the ad hoc committee level. So again, I appreciate the leadership of Supervisor Rivas, Supervisor Medina, County Council, and staff. Sarah has been great to work with. And then the rest of the stakeholders as well. They've contributed immensely to this conversation. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? None? Okay, let me open up to the public. Do you have any speaker cards? Jason? Anyone from the public? Yeah, this is public comment.
Marty Richmond from Hollister. I am very happy to see that this portion of the proposal is being intensively managed. I think that's very important to get it straight. If I can ask through the chair to the county council whether we're still at about 25 applicants when the duplicates are removed, is approximately?
Do you have an exact number, Sarah? Do you remember?
It looks to be about 27.
27. Okay, that's just wanted to get some kind of concept. So since there are only 27 applicants, I would think we could put up a database, and those items that are mandatory, we could check them off. And I understand Supervisor Medina's comments about there will be no gray areas or something, but there are always gray areas, especially in a new proposal. So, but there's going to be some things that can't be waived and can't be corrected. If you're in the wrong location, no one's going to say, "Oh, don't worry about it." Okay. If you have a felony conviction that's not allowed by the regulation, no one's going to say, "Don't worry about it." However, if you got the wrong size water pump, that's correctable. We can say to people, you need a water pump that's this big, and you only got one that's that big, so that's correctable. You need to go out and fix that. But I think it's important to essentially reward the people who came forward and applied, as we asked them to, and to show the people who didn't come forward, and I understand there's a lot of them, that we're serious. And the only way to do that is enforcement. There's no advantage to people following the rules if we're not going to enforce the rules for the people against the people who do not follow the rules. And I understand we don't know exactly what it is, but people step up here and say, well, there's 100 operations out there, or there's 200 operations. I've had some comments about some articles I've written. People said, well, I don't want to apply because they may say no and it costs a lot of money. Well, guess what? That's why we want to control this, because we don't want people who can't afford to or don't intend to put their money up to follow the rules to be running operations out there, because you know what's going to happen. if they don't follow the rules, they're going to be contaminating the water supply, stealing water, and all these other problems. Everybody knows that. So my question is, I hope as part of this operation, as part of vetting people who do follow rules, we talk to the sheriff and code enforcement and tell them to start cracking down on those who do not. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public?
Good morning. Peter Brazil from LNG. I'm here on behalf of multiple clients in the county. First, I'd like to thank Supervisor Rivas, Medina, the Ad Hoc Council, Pinnacle Strategies, Sarah, and the rest of you guys for working diligently on this issue. I still don't have a clear understanding as to how this amortization process is going to work, and I'm sure you guys haven't quite figured out what the calculations will be here, how this is exactly work. I want to emphasize the same thing I've spoken to at multiple supervisor meetings is we have stakeholders here who have been operating for some time, and what I'm trying to make sure is that whatever process we go through, that it bridges over to the permitting process, meaning there isn't a cessation in operations, which would be really detrimental to most of these operations. I also was glad to hear about these corrections. I was going to bring that up. There may be minor issues at some of these sites, and I'm hoping there's a working relationship in correcting those. Obviously, anything that's completely out of line or isn't compliant with state regs to some extent, I fully understand that and support that. Again, I just want to make sure that we're looking at these as thriving operations, that we're not looking to kill. These people came forward, they participated in the process to the extent that they are compliant in every other respect and meet with to your satisfaction as far as being a benefit to the community, are allowed to continue to operate. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close public comment. All right, Barbara? So.
I have May 23rd at 1:30 p.m. if the board would like to do so.
I think that we've settled the two issues for that
I'm sorry.
we decided already. So I will certainly move that we set a public hearing to hear the current applications for May 23rd. And the second, that we'll come back at our next regular board meeting in 2 weeks with a date for the special meeting to review the draft ordinance and hold a public hearing for that ordinance.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so the motion is for the committee to meet on the 23rd, right, Supervisor Rivas? Or the whole board?
For the full board to meet on the 23rd.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries 4-0. Okay. Shoot. Okay. 17th.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've invited Sean Tannenbaum, Director of Human Resources for San Benito High School, as well as the interim superintendent for the high school. He'll be presenting to your board an aquatic vision for the high school and looking for assistance within the community. So we have our interim San Benito High School superintendent here, Sean. Sean?
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Chair and Board, and for that illustrious invitation there, Ray. I understand.
Come on, Louis.
See if it goes on the presentation mode. It's not on presentation mode. So let's see if we get this. See how it's not. Full screen. Yeah. Where's your little full screen?
Can you repeat that again, Ray?
There we go. Right here? Yeah. Okay, no scroll. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much for having me this morning. I'm Sean Tannenbaum, the Interim Superintendent and Director of Human Resources for the high school district, and just wanted to share a little bit of information, and I'll primarily focus on the Aquatic Center, but also on the great work the high school district is doing. Thank you to all the voters for supporting Measure U and all the folks in the audience. The high school district has made a strong commitment to making sure that not only our students today, but in the future are well taken care of with modernized facilities and upgrades, and really an eye to the future. And it's great to see Chase here, one of our former student athletes here next to me. So without further ado, if there's any questions, this is an informational item, and I will be asking the board later in the presentation for a future agenda item to kind of delve deeper into this concept of partnership with the county. This summer, we're going to be embarking on modernization of our campus. You'll see in blue here, this is the north section beyond Nash Road of modernizing all of our classrooms, getting those ADA compliant HVAC, new paint, carpet, etc. And this just goes hand in hand with Measure G and Measure U, continuing our efforts to modernize our facility and bring that up to 21st century as far as the learning environment is concerned. Another area that we're looking at this summer is special education expansion. We do have an increasing population of students with special needs on campus, so we will be modernizing our 270s wing and then slowly moving into what we call the 260s, which is our current English classrooms. And all of those will be up to code, ADA compliant, for a very large special needs population. We are the only high school in the county that houses our severely handicapped population, so it is a great need for us as we move forward. We're going to be building a staff lounge this summer for teachers and staff members. It's in the area of our 250s, which is on the main campus. It'll be a 21st century staff lounge, multiple portals for laptops, smartphones, etc., big screen TVs so that our staff can work on presentations and really give them the facility they need as they move forward to collaborate together. As many of you know, Nash Road is underway as far as discussions and the mutual agreement with the city and the county, and thank you to Mr. Goldstone and everybody involved in that. We'll be currently meeting with all stakeholders and have reached out for an April 26th meeting to time that up as far as timelines are concerned and design process as we move forward to ensuring that we have a safe environment for the roughly 2,900 students that cross Nash Road. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 to 11,000 students cross back and forth on a school day. Another area that we are moving forward with is we have an ag building that we're moving the center of our campus, which will have a student union conversion, which will be right off of Nash Road. Many of you have seen that, so it'll be right next to Matson Gym, which will then be the centerpiece, if you will, of the high school district. You can see a rendering here where Nash Road kind of bisects the drawing. You'll see the central quad, student union with a new kitchen and servery, as well as all ASB athletics, kind of a one-stop shopping, if you will, for mom, dad, and students. But it'll be a really nice feel to it. Once Nash Road is closed, from 7 to 7, we'll have a nice walkway and thoroughfare for our students and staff to safely travel to and from. Very exciting about these upcoming projects. The board has been committed and allocated resources with Measure U funding to build a state-of-the-art science building. It'll have 12 multi-faceted science classrooms that are both wet and dry labs for anything from physics, chemistry, and biology to really move us into what we like to call the 21st century as far as learning environments. That'll be down Nash Road by the west interchange where the future bypass road is, if you look at that map on the left there. The next building is a 12 classroom building that we're moving forward with for student growth. As we know, we have a lot of developments here in San Benito County and Hollister. So this building will have be able to house upwards of 360 to 400 students that we anticipate coming to the high school in the future years. And I think that's a great eye to the future. So we have multiple options here, and I won't go through each of them, but I will focus on. So Also with Measure U, we're looking at adding and making sure that we are current with our physical education as well as athletic facilities, and I'll kind of walk you through that, and then we'll get into the aquatic center discussion. One of the options that we presented to our Board of Trustees and the public for input is taking a look at everything south of Nash Road. As you can see in the top left-hand corner, we have the Science Building and the Growth Building. We have a new greenhouse going in with an orchard that would be an outdoor area for our students to continue the ag science development. You can see the future county parking lot coming off the bypass road, as well as a new synthetic turf field for physical education, athletics, JV and freshman softball and baseball. The potential for a small ag pasture, which is right next to our ag barn, right off the center of the bypass road, a future softball complex for our lady athletes. And then if you look towards where San Benito and the bypass road would intersect, additional parking, which is much needed on our campus. As many of the county supervisors know, it's a challenge to park there. And then the stadium renovation. We're looking to upgrade the entire football track and field stadium with synthetic turf, as well as an all-weather track, new bleachers, and storage facilities. But right in the heart of that is an opportunity for us to partner with Hollister for Aquatics, and Mr. Judd Schutz and I have been in discussion for months now with the Board of Trustees for the Aquatic Center. This is one potential location and an opportunity for the high school district to be an excellent collaborator with both the city and the county. And you can see in this rendering, right now the high school district and the Board of Trustees has gone out for an RFQ for architectural services for both a 50-meter Olympic-sized pool as well as a learn-to-swim pool, which would accommodate both students and student athletes, as well as lessons in other groups in the community. But we're also looking to add a component which would be a recreational facility where we could really tap into the need here in San Benito County. We have taken a look at multiple sites as far as different locations. We visited Carmel High School. We visited Grant High School up in Sacramento. We visited Reedley High School in the community of Reedley. And the first thing everybody tells us when we go out and we visit is that they didn't build enough pool. As soon as the Reedley folks partnered with their community, the high school district did, it became the crown jewel of that community as far as athletics, having recreation, and a healthy lifestyle. So our goal is to work with the county board, the city, Hollister for Aquatics, to really partner down the road here so that not only our students and student athletes, but all members of the community, whether it be a master's swim, whether it be a mommy and me class in the water, whether it be some type of aquatic therapeutic component, that we have that opportunity for the residents in San Benito County. I think one of the things, and I've been a member of the San Benito High School staff for over 20 years, is we have the land. And we have that availability, and we have that opportunity now to really build a strong vision for our community, and we have great access. We're building around there. We have a beautiful new bypass road coming in shortly in the year 2018. We're willing to extend that parking lot so that we have accessibility. And I do appreciate Supervisor Medina and Supervisor Rivas for coming on the community tour on April 1st. We have one scheduled there shortly to show these facilities. So what I thought I would do is engage in the conversation this morning, what our vision is, to really put that on the forefront and ask the board for a future presentation where we really dive deep into the partnership between the school district, Hollister for Aquatics, and potential partnership with the county and the city to build that second component. As I said, we are committed to building the two pools. What we would like is to build one full aquatic center, which we believe would be a great opportunity for all the residents in the county. Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? I guess we'll hear our report. Supervisor Munsters and myself attended the Intergovernment Committee, and the presentation was made, and the question really came down to funding. That's the real question.
Absolutely.
And I think I can speak for myself. I'll allow Supervisor Munzer to speak for himself. We have a lot of issues. We have a long list on the wish list, and I mean, we got to find $5 million for our jail. We got our roads, our staff. It's just endless number of items that we're trying to fulfill, and I will support this idea as long as it ain't coming from the general fund. It cannot come from general fund. It has to be from some other funding mechanism, but not from a general fund. In fact, we even have the library. We got a $45 million library that we got to talk about that too.
Right.
So I said, bring it forward to the Board of Supervisors make a presentation and see what type of reaction you get from the board. But I myself, as a member of the Intergovernment Committee, which saw this report at first, I like the idea. It's wonderful. I just cannot commit general fund money, and that's my position.
Well, I do appreciate
and
that.
If there's some other funding mechanism, we can talk about it. Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I stated in the Intergovernment Committee, the county is committed to putting together the regional park, which is just south of this new county bypass road. Mm-hmm. The proposed pool and aquatic center is on high school property. I understand that, but my understanding as a board, we were going to put together the land, and then we were looking to nonprofits to come in and do the infrastructure to actually build out the regional park. I concur with the chair. The county has many needs, and committing $4 or $5 million for one thing, one aspect of a regional park, I don't think we can do that. As I stated in the intergovernment, I feel that this needs to be a public-private partnership. Mm-hmm. I have not seen any private participation in this as of yet, and if I go forward with supporting this, I definitely want to see a significant participation of private funds for this. The other question I have for a full board is there was some talk of using county staff to help come up with some more additional information, and I believe we made the determination that before county staff is directed to spend time and money on projects, especially coming out of the intergovernment, the full board needs to give that direction. Now, whether we can do that today or that has to be a future agendized item, I think that needs to be determined whether this board wants to direct county staff time and money to vet out this project. So, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Rivas.
Yeah, so general fund money that falls out of the sky, whatever it is, I have no problem using any form or any of our dollars, whether it comes from the general fund, whether it comes from a special fund, for the benefit of our community. Okay? When I look at what Samuel High School is doing, I think it is exceptional. I think that it is a vision that this community needs. From the time I decided to run for supervisor from 2010 until now, there's one thing that I've constantly heard. You hear the issues about growth, you hear the issues about our roads, but it's also about the lack of recreation. I teach at Gavilan College, and so the first class when I introduce myself to the students, I always ask them, hey, how do you guys like living in this area? We hate it. We hate it because there's nothing to do. And so when I look at the fact that there is this huge gap in our community for youth, and even for adults, this recreational gap, our goal is to build out the regional park, but also I think common sense tells us to reach for that low-hanging fruit. This is low-hanging fruit. This is a plan and a vision that is being implemented as we speak, whether it's the tennis courts, whether it's an existing pool, whether it's a new track, these recreational fields. This is low-hanging fruit. If it's going to cost us a little bit of money to establish these partnerships, these recreational partnerships, working with the Hollister for Aquatics, working with YMCA, working with First Five, working with established organizations in our community. We have to go after that, because the future, we serve on AMBAG, and for the last few years, it's all we've heard is regionalism, whether it's through these policies and initiatives to attack climate change, whether it's to address our transportation needs and to improve our corridors. The one word I've always heard, and it's constant, is regionalism. And the same has to be said here. It has to be about partnerships moving forward, because the county can't go at it alone to address this need in our community, this lack of recreation. We need to have these partnerships, whether it's with school districts, with the cities. And if we have to make a contribution to that, I'm okay with it, as long as we see the benefit. I don't want to make a contribution knowing that it's a risk. I don't think this is a risk. I think that this is going to be a direct benefit for our constituents, for our residents. As a community, we invested and we entrusted the high school with a significant amount of public, the high school district with a significant amount of public monies to invest in our only high school here in Hollister, which is a huge piece of the culture and the history that defines our community. We're investing in the future for these students. You should see these facilities that are going into this high school. It's for the benefit of these students. It's incredible. I wish, having graduated from Hollister High School in 1998, I wish I had access to these facilities. I may not be here in this seat today. I may have majored in something else. But this is a high school that's providing significant opportunities for future youth that they won't find these opportunities in very many counties and cities and in high schools. It's incredible what our high school is doing. But I think that this is a vision that I can get behind, because I believe that there's going to be significant, immediate a benefit for our county and for our residents that live here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tannenbaum. Good job.
Thank you, Supervisor Rivas.
Well, first of all, I've followed this project for the last, I would say, close to a year and a half. And when we think of money, if we had the money, it would be in slam dunk. But then you look at it realistically. You look at it as a budget. You look at what is priority. And right now what I'm looking at is, I'm still doing research, is if this did come to fruition, how much money will the city and county receive in sales tax? Because people, when you have swim meets and you have venues, people will be here to spend money locally. They'll use that new hotel that is coming online in the next couple of weeks or months, along with all the other hotels we have here. So you've got to look at that part of the revenue stream. But then you look at $4 million. From the general fund, we can't take it out of our general fund. If I was to take $4 million out of the general fund, it would be to fix my roads. And I know I was up here talking about roads, but when you're talking about someone driving from point A to point B, if the roads aren't there, how are they going to get from their house to the center? So it is a program. We need to figure out how to come up with the $4 million. Some type of a special fund, but I cannot see it coming out of our general fund. And then the final thing I look at is, since I'm an accountant, I break things down to the bare minimum. We have approximately 65,000 people in the county and city. When you look at that, how many of those people will be using that aquatic center? Is it going to be 2%, 4%, 10%, 15%? So when we have an unlimited amount of money, we need to make sure that money works for everyone, and that's something I often have to look at. But thank you.
I do appreciate the comments, Board and Mr. Chair, and if the Board is so inclined, I'd like to bring back a future agenda item to further dive into this and to answer some of those questions so that we can move forward. And I know the high school district is committed to collaboration and partnerships right now. We see that as the future. We can't be alone in this. We have to work together. And so I do thank you for all your time this morning and your consideration.
I appreciate it. I got some questions.
Yeah.
A couple questions. Just listening to my fellow supervisors. The swimming, you got through the bond that the voters approved, that's going to provide funding for 2 swimming pools at the high school, regardless of what the county and the city does, correct?
That is correct.
So there will be 2 swimming pools there for our students.
That is correct.
The add-ons are the aquatic center, and that's more for the public at large.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
And so if you do come back, just like any other business, someone needs to pay for those, for those materials, for the salts, for the potassium on the swimming pool to make sure the pH levels are at the neutral.
Awful lot of chemicals that go in there.
A lot of chemicals, a lot of expenses. A lot of expenses.
It is.
And so if we're not only are we talking about, one-time money to help for the aquatics center, not the swimming pool, because you committed, the trustees committed to building 2 swimming pools, regardless of what else is built up. From the aquatic center facility finances, I would recommend you bring back a budget, because if we, the board, do commit and invest money into the aquatic side of this thing, not the 2 swimming pools, then any dollar that comes out, most likely will be discussed during budget process 3-5 years down the road. And so we want to make sure that if we're going to invite a new activity into our general process, that it has to be a self-sustaining organization. And I know there's a nonprofit group out there that's trying to raise the money through all kinds of mechanisms. So they have to bring their numbers, they have to bring their budget and what they expect is going to be, a year-to-year operations. Because if the county board of supervisors have to subsidize that, then that can become problematic, through the discussion process.
Yeah, absolutely.
The conversations I had with the nonprofit or Mr. Schutz, it's self-sustained. Once they take over that second aquatic center, it's basically yours. It's self-sustainable, and I don't see us, the city or the county, having to pay any more fees for maintenance. That's why you'll be charging people in order to enter the facility, and with those funds, you'll pay your staff and you'll pay your upkeep of the needed chemicals.
Make sure they bring that budget back.
Yeah, exactly. Many times.
Okay, thank you. Let me open up to the public now.
Thank you.
Anyone from the public?
Marty Richmond from Hollister's. I understand the proposal that it is to essentially marry the high school pools with private pools. I'll use the term privately operated pools for the benefit of the county. And the way the original proposal was, and I understand it's not fully fleshed out, essentially this would all be public money of a sort. There'd be money from the county, there'd be money from the city, and there'd be money from the high school bonds. Based on that, I think a logical next step would be to ask for a business plan, because it's a complicated issue. There's the issue of the capital, but as Mr. Medina pointed out so precisely, there is the issue of the ongoing costs. If you're going to hire lifeguards, is the high school going to contribute X amount of dollars to the ongoing cost? After all, if they just operated their own pools, they would have ongoing costs. Would we be able to offset some of that with the public, with what people pay to enter? What about the members of the county taxpayers who are in the lower third of the income stream and may not be able to afford, depending on what the pricing is going to be, maybe not be able to afford to use the aquatic center, depending on what it costs, whether you're paying for a yearly pass, whether you're paying for a daily pass, whether you're paying for a family, you get a pass, or by the number of people you have in a family. It's all very complicated. Most people, if they were doing this as a private process, would have a business plan. And I think at some point at a time, we ought to encourage the people who want to do this to start fleshing out a business plan. So have some idea whether or not it's really can be self-sustaining. After all, those costs are knowable. People do it, so we can find out what they are. They're not going to be a mystery, and we'll see what kind of a attendance you have to get to make it viable. If the public doesn't come. And by the way, I'm all for learning how to swim. In the military, we used to call it drown-proofing. I don't know if anybody remembers that. You used to have to drown-proof a lot of troops because they didn't know how to swim, and so it's important. And not just for high school students. You actually learn how to swim when you're a lot younger. So that's what I think we ought to do. As for a business plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Anyone else in the public? None. I'll close it. Okay. All right. So, Supervisor Munz's question: do we direct staff to start spending time? So, I want to hear. Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of time right now invested. I think there's going to be more from Sean's side. Why don't we work a little bit with him, put it on the agenda, and then at that point the board will give us direction. I think that's wise.
And then plus Supervisor Botello will be here at that time.
Yeah.
Too. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good work.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chase.
All right. Number 19, Louis.
I was going to ask the CEO to repeat his previous statement, but I didn't want to appear to be cruel. So it's my pleasure, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, to introduce item number 19, and I am certain that is the... did you say 18? I'm sorry?
18.
18, I'm sorry. That's great. Item number 18. This is before you. As you can recall, a few weeks back, the board directed, after listening to the initial presentation by Mr. Ashu Jain, the representative of Optera Energy, to come back to the board with a proposal for your consideration on the agenda. And before you, for your consideration, is this proposal. To have the initial analysis and study done by Mr. James' firm, Optera Energy. He is present in case the board does have any questions. Just to be clear that the proposal, if it does not pencil out, then, or if it does pencil out, the board has a number of options that have been listed in the staff report. So if you do have any questions at this point about the proposal or about the scope of work that is being proposed to be done, I'm happy to try and answer those questions, and so is Mr. Jain.
Thank you. Supervisor Medina? Supervisor Munzer?
Two questions. One, did the Vets Park Commission have a meeting? Did you make quorum, and did you
This is
discuss this?
Mr. Munzer, I'm sorry, this is number 18.
Are we not on
18?
My apologies.
I
did say 19 initially, and then I corrected myself and said number 18.
I apologize. I was reading. So we're on 18.
We are number 18.
Okay, so Vets Park has nothing to do with this.
Vets Park has absolutely nothing to
Don't they have
do
land that
with this
put the solar
particular
panels
item.
on?
If, however, you'd like for the CAO to recount that information, I'm sure he'd be willing to do so at this point. But it might appear to be a bit painful. So,
I'm sorry. I went to 19. I was studying 19. So no, I have no questions at this point.
Supervisor Rivas?
I have nothing.
Okay, let me open up to the public. Anyone from the public? None? Okay, close it. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for staff recommendation.
Oh, hold. You wanna? Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
For the maker of the motion, could I also ask that you add to that motion, authorize the CAO to approve any minor amendments to the contract? It's still being the final approval from Optera. We had proposed changes back on last week, and we want to make sure that they've approved our final changes to the contract. That's presented to the board. But if there's any minor modifications that don't increase the scope of work, I'd like the CAO to have authority to approve the final contract.
Accept that amendment to the motion.
I don't really expect any. No, not any dollar amounts. Yeah.
nothing substantive?
No, yeah.
The second accepts.
Second, accept.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries 4-0. Okay.
You know I'm with money.
19 now,
No.
Jerry.
Jerry's 19.
Jerry, 19.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, item number 19,
Yes.
previously referred to under item 18, is now the Veterans Park Commission project, and Mr. Adam Goldstone, our capital project manager, is here to present that item.
Okay. Adam?
Good morning. I apologize first off for not having a little bit more background at the last meeting about this item. That was my recommendation at the time. We should have had a little bit more, input to see the pros and cons of that recommendation and other possible ones. So we met last week, Vets Park Commission, and discussed the other main option, and that is to proceed with the project. And that is what you have before you today for consideration, based on input from the commissioners that were at the meeting, that time may be a larger factor in this case than the potential, and I stress the word potential because it's not guaranteed that we would save any money with an alternate approach. So I'm here for any specific questions on that, or if I can elaborate.
Thank you. Supervisor Munzer?
Okay, well, once again, is there any space for solar panels at the...
Yes.
Okay, my question's getting back to seriousness. Did the Vets Park Commission special meeting make quorum?
Yes. No.
No,
we
they
did
did
not
not.
make quorum.
So the commission did not officially discuss this item?
Not officially. Unofficially, we did.
Okay. And two, is the whole project still under budget
Yes.
with this bid?
Yes, with one minor caveat, and that is that there would be no money for any potential change orders, meaning the consultant contract that was awarded last year plus the bid for the construction is essentially right at your budget. So if there were any issues or problems that arose during construction, we would need to find additional funding and come back to the board to authorize a change order.
And where would those funds come from?
Actually, CO Ray Espinosa, let her.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that we would have to amend on the staff recommendation, item 5, not to exceed $1,810. That's where our budget's at. And it would have to come back if there are any change orders, probably back to the FITS or go after some park impact fees and get approval from the parks area. So that would be my recommendation to the board with that augmentation.
Yeah, that's correct. There is additional park impact fees that could be allocated towards this.
Okay, so if the project is underway, some issues come up, and a change order exceeding the amended amount comes about, then we're going to delay the project by having to come back before this board for approval of this.
That's correct.
Well, hold on. Run by that me again.
Without augmenting the budget further today or in the near future, then it would need to be done later at the time a change order is requested, versus the discussion we had was supplementing the budget now in case there's issues.
And the board
To
could
save
approve the
time.
contract today with the $1,800 in item number 5 and direct staff to bring back a budget amendment at the next meeting.
Correct.
And deal with it at the next meeting. That way there's no issue of slowing down the project, but you also get the authorization today.
Yeah, because I'm concerned with the same as Supervisor Munzer, that if we're going to delay it, then everything's out the window. But I think you might have found a solution. Supervisor Munzer?
Okay. And I guess I would defer to our members of the Vets Park Commission. Are you comfortable with this? Does this need to go before the full commission?
Okay. I'll let Supervisor Martino.
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, I want to thank Supervisor Rivas for knocking some sense in my head on this whole ordinance here. You know, what I'm thinking of now is after I sat with the Vets Commission, it's on budget. So it's fine. It's set there. It's on budget. Secondly is if we were to not accept any of the bids and go back out to bid, it would take approximately 4 to 6 months, I believe you said.
Weeks, probably about 6 weeks.
And then
additional.
15 days or 20 days after the time the bid is received to actually start work.
A bit more than that.
Okay,
yeah.
so by that time, we're in the middle of summer, it's hot, the grass is dead. So now we saved maybe 25 to 50,000, which we don't know if we save, but we have to spend 90,000 on grass. So it really doesn't make any sense not to approve it as it is right now and move forward. And the Vets Commission part, Supervisor Munger, we were here. Jaime and our supervisor, Del Cruz, and I were there, and we both agreed on moving this forward.
Okay, thank you. I reached the same conclusion, Supervisor Munzer, is that timing is important because we have the potential for another burst out there, and I don't want to have another league organization come before us and saying, you guys committed that you guys are going to fix the water problems. What's going on? Now we got to spend another $40,000-$50,000 of our money to clean or fix those parks. So I'm comfortable if Ray has a solution in terms of not delaying time. But if there's not a solution on that, then I will support Supervisor Munzer's concerns, and that is maybe redraw it again. But I think now I'm comfortable. We vented out at the vets unofficially. And I'm okay.
Careful saying that, Mr.
I
Chair.
know.
Careful
yeah.
saying that.
Yeah. Right.
One question. So if we have to augment the budget, then we're over budget. We're not within budget.
If we have to go over that amount, we are technically over budget. You are absolutely
I just want to
right.
make sure that
Absolutely right.
everyone is aware of that. Right now we are within budget, but we have to. Technically, we could run over budget to get this project completed.
If we have change orders that come in that account for $1,800 or thereabouts, then we're still within budget.
Yeah. Okay.
But if it goes over, then we would.
So if we go over budget, is it going to delay it?
Well, that was the recommendation, is to go ahead and create a plan for that. Take it back, get approval, do an augmentation, come back to your board at a later date. I'm hoping that we can hold these folks to the contract and not have any change orders, and then we would be in budget as well. So that's something that we need to work with and internally with staff and make sure that they're doing their part. So.
Okay. All right. Supervisor Rivas?
I'm good, Mr. Chair. I just want to move.
Okay, thank you. Let me open up to the public. Anyone from the public? None? Okay.
Make a motion to SBC file number 127. Accept all bids received for the Veterans Memorial Park irrigation system.
Second.
And?
Sorry.
And the remaining parts of the staff recommendation as amended?
And the remaining parts of the staff recommendation.
Second.
As submitted.
Second. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Against? Motion carries 4-0.
And,
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, so we will direct staff to bring back another agenda item to.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Next item. Oh shoot.
Last item.
This is the last item.
This is coming out of our RMA office. We have Larry
Number 20.
here to present this item. Number 20.
Okay.
The consent out of the way. Just go.
I agree with you, Robert. Can't argue on that one.
Well, is it because we got the consent item out of the way, or because Supervisor Patello's not here?
I'll remind him to take more vacations. Now?
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This item that is before you was prepared by Jim Pulfer, and our senior engineer at RMA, who I thought was going to be here this morning to actually address any questions you have, but he hasn't been able to make it here. So what this is, though, is these public interest findings is a way to reactivate contracts that were approved with various engineering design firms some years ago for these 5 bridge projects. 3 of them are bridge replacement projects. The other 2 are guardrail replacement projects. I don't know why the work on all of these projects at some point in time just seemed to come to a halt. And when that happened, the contracts expired and the work stopped. But recently here, work has resumed on them, and in order to complete the design and allow for these projects to go to construction, we need to reactivate these contracts. So Mr. Pulfer has been in touch with Caltrans Local Assistance Branch and has determined that there is a way to reactivate these contracts without going back to competitive bid, and that's by making these public interest findings. If you make these findings, the contracts will be reactivated, and there will be no changes to the any of the terms of the original contract. So the prices will remain the same. The fees that were in these contracts will be the same. There are no anticipated additional costs that would result. It would simply allow the original firms to complete their work. And most of these projects, the design work is anywhere from 75 to maybe 90% complete. So they got very far along on these, and then I don't know why the work ceased, maybe due to staffing turnovers or other priorities that that the RMA was dealing with. But for whatever reason, the contracts did terminate, and now we want to reactivate them. So this is the most expedient way to do that. And it makes the most sense, really, because if we didn't go this route, we would essentially have to start the design process on all these projects from scratch, and that wouldn't make any sense. So we've been given assurance by Caltrans that if we make these findings, the funding for these projects will continue to be available, and we'll get these designs completed, and a number of these, I believe, will be out to bid this summer.
Okay, Supervisor Munzer, this is your alley. Come
on. So, the San Felipe Road bridge guardrails, that's the same site where we now have K-rails up for as a guardrail? And if you're not sure...
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe it is.
Okay.
I believe it is. So... why these projects have not been done? Some of them, I think, are going on 20 years. I have even been trying to get an agendized item. I asked for it at the retreat. It didn't happen. A report on where we are on all these projects, all these bridges. The fact that these contracts have lapsed, I think, is unacceptable. I totally support going forward, getting them reinstated, and let's get some shovels in the ground this summer. I'm going to throw in the John Smith Road realignment. I want to hear a report on where we are with that. Again, a very long project that just doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and we need to get these things going. This is unacceptable. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Supervisor Rivas?
I have nothing, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor,
can I chime in real quick?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, Supervisor Munzer, to your point about the status report on all the projects, before Larry and James came on, I actually sat down with Jim Pulfer and asked him to put a spreadsheet together detailing all of the current projects and their status. That was as a result of your request from the retreat. So I wanted to make you aware of that. And I believe we might have forwarded that report and that spreadsheet to you from Mr. Pulfer.
But and I appreciate that, but it needs to be discussed in open session.
Indeed.
Joe. Okay.
Indeed. I just want to let you know that.
Yeah.
There is a list, there are statuses, and as a result of
I'm
that
aware.
analysis,
Yes, I am aware of it, but I still want it to be discussed in open session.
Yes, sir.
You know, why we have K-rails up as guardrails after a wet winter when we've had this project on the books for forever. And I know most of the players that strung this out are no longer here.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to make sure all the new people in place, this continuance will not be acceptable.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Sir, let me open it up to the public. Anyone from the public? None, oppose it? What's the pleasure of the board? Can we wrap them all together in one? Okay.
Was that a yes?
That's a yes. You can make a motion to accept
Make-
all.
Make a motion per staff recommendation.
Looks like, Chase, do you have the resolutions numbers? Okay, can you just repeat it just for the public? And then we'll vote on it. Oh, you don't have them with you? Okay. Don't worry about it. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries 4-0. For staff recommendation for all the resolutions.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Get some work done.
We will.
All right, now we go to closed session, Barbara.
The board's going to meet in closed Item 21, conference with the legal counsel, existing litigation under subdivision A and D1 of section 54956.9, name of case BMC Promise Way LLC, doing business as Benchmark Communities versus County of San Benito, City of Hollister, Superior Court of California, County of San Benito, case number CU 15-00056. Conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, subdivisions A and D1 of section 54956.9, Award Homes versus County of San Benito, et al., Superior Court of California, County of San benito, case number CU 15-00099. Closed session pursuant to section 54956.95, liability claims, and conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, subdivision A and D1 of section 54956.9. Name of case is Egan versus County of San Benito, Sheriff's Office, Trindle Insurance Fund, Workers' Comp Appeal Board, case number ADJ 100497774. Claimant Patricia Egan, agency claimed against San Benito County, member of the Trindle Insurance Fund. Closed session pursuant to labor negotiations, agency designated representatives Allison Hayek, Ray Espinoza, Joe Paul Gonzalez, Melinda Casillas, Georgia Cochran, Steve Coffey, the employee organizations, institutions, association, law enforcement, management employees groups, SEIU Local 521, SEIU Local 2015, Deputy Sheriff's Office, confidential and confidential management, appointed department heads and unrepresentative. And lastly, number 25 is significant exposure pursuant to litigation, subdivision D2, E2 of of Government Code 54956.9. This is under anticipated litigation, number of cases 1, and facts and circumstances justifying the closed session is receipt of notice of the violation and settlement offer dated March 10th, 2017.
Okay, we will go closed session.
Is there anybody? Was there any public?
Oh, anybody from the public? None? Okay. Closed session.